Do you remember your reading after you graduated high school? I graduated high school May 1974. It's now 51 years later, May 2025. And I wrote a little essay about it. We each have different experiences, memories of the time immediately after high school graduation. Some dislike revisiting painful memories. Others love the nostalgia, the good feelings, the happy memories. I'm remembering my reading the summer and early fall after my high school graduation. Some of these titles triggered powerful memories. I remember I read Tarzan and Frank Merriwell while reclined on my bed. Others I read elsewhere. On 7 a.m. the morning after I graduated high school, my dad looked over his morning newspaper right into my eyes and demanded, "Son, when are you going to get a job?" I was seated in the same kitchen, same place I'd been sitting each morning since we moved to this home in 1959. My mom was at the same stove, my dad was in his same chair. Only in my dad's view, this was an entirely different world. I was a high school graduate. It was time for me to be a working man. Now, from my point of view, I'd been a working man since May 1968. Back then, I came home from my last day of school of the sixth grade, and a man was in our living room. He was the regional manager over newspaper carriers. I was starting a newspaper route at 4:30 a.m. the next morning, and I'd deliver the afternoon paper at 4:30 p.m. That's what I did for the, well, not all of it. I got a few breaks, but for the next 6 years. So, from my point of view, I'd been a working man for 6 years. My childhood had ended no later than May 1968. Dad handed me the what ads. He meant a real job. Then, surprising me and pleasing me for one of the few times in my life, my mother intervened. When mom and dad finished talking, I had a vacation, 2 week vacation. A little more as it turned out. So, since I had a vacation, my intent was to read. That's not what everybody would want to do, but that's what I did. Now, back then, bookstores were ubiquitous. Um, so I ate breakfast, dressed, walked down the street to the corner new and used bookstore. I browsed and I bought 3 books I'd been thinking about reading, but while still attending high school, felt I didn't have time to read them. But now I had the books and the time. I read them. First one was Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. This is a grand science fiction fantasy story about our first missions to and from Mars. I suspect this also had a powerful impact on Elon Musk, this book, novel. Then I read Harold Lamb's Genghis Khan, Emperor of All Men. It was published in 1927. This is a powerful nonfiction story about the man who came to be known as Genghis Khan, founder of the Mongol Empire. Now, Khan was 12. His father was murdered, his tribe was conquered. He managed to escape. They were trying to kill him too, but he managed to escape, gained some allies, and reconquered his own tribe. And that's what he continued doing for the rest of his life. He would conquer or destroy tribes about his size of his tribe. Of course, his tribe kept getting bigger until he was ruler over half the known world. Um, Well, then I did get a real job working in a factory. First one I read was after I was working was Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions. Then I read Dr. Roger Williams' You Are Extraordinary. Um, I know where that is. I actually thought about showing it to you, but I'll do that at a different time. Then I read two old novels. Now, I'd heard of these much of my life, but I'd never read them. Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs and Frank Merriwell at Yale by Gilbert Patton. Both good adventure stories. Now, I never went to Yale, but my youngest daughter is a Yale graduate. Uh, Now, I probably read some Doc Savage and some comic books, but the only one I specifically recollect was reading Jim Starlin's Captain Marvel Thanos saga. And I was working, and I remember on the way home, I stopped at a convenience store and I bought a frozen pepperoni pizza, a quart of Coca Cola. It wasn't yet, uh, some had gone to the 2 liter bottles, but not all of them. And this paperback book, Beyond Earth Man's Contact with UFOs, put up an Amazon review a couple of years ago. So, what books will I read this summer? I don't always read what's on my reading list. So, I don't know for sure. I'm not going to share what's on my reading list. That's just workbooks, basically. But do you remember any specific titles of books you read after you graduated high school in the following weeks or months? Um, Now, I'm not certain. I think it might have been the third book was Sirens of Titan. Um, it may not have been because my recollection, the more I've been, I don't know how your memory is, but mine for things decades ago kind of creeps back in pieces. I think my mom, who always went to garage sales, convinced me to go with her to a garage sale with my mom and my sister. And I bought the Sirens of Titan. I think I bought that at a garage sale, not at the other one. Anyway, feel free to tell me what you remember reading. All those books I remember. They touched my life.